We're talking about Florida today. Not the Florida you see on Instagram with palm trees and sunsets. The real Florida. The side Disney doesn't show you in the commercials. Let me tell you, some of these cities are struggling. Like, not, oh, we need to fix some potholes struggling. More like, wait, people actually live here? Struggling. We're about to tour 15 cities that make you appreciate wherever you're watching this from. Number 15, Tallahassee. Wait, the state capital is on this list? The literal headquarters of Florida government? Yeah, let me explain. Tallahassee has a violent crime rate that is more than double the state average. The state average, in the state capital. You know it's bad when the politicians making the laws can't even keep their own city safe. Here's where it gets wild. Wallet Hub ranked 149 major US cities on quality of services. Tallahassee came in 138th for health services. 138. That's not a ranking, that's a cry for help. And get this, hundreds of homeless people live in a city that's basically run by government workers and college students. You'd think between the legislative budgets and Florida State's endowment, someone could figure this out, but nope. The irony is thick. Politicians in Tallahassee are passing laws about homelessness across Florida, while their own capital has one of the highest per capita rates in the state. Make it make sense. Be honest. Would you feel safe in a capital city with crime rates that bad? Number 14, Lauderhill. There's a city in Broward County where violent crime jumped 20% in 5 years. 20%. That's not a trend, that's a spiral. Lauderhill sits inland from Fort Lauderdale, and honestly, it got all of South Florida's problems with none of the benefits. You're paying Fort Lauderdale prices, insurance, rent, groceries, but earning Lauderhill wages. It's economic whiplash. The violent crime rate in Lauderhill is also more than twice the Florida average. And it's not slowing down, it's accelerating. Researchers found violent incidents climbing steadily since 2018, with property crime following close behind. Can we talk about the urban planning here? Lauderhill is basically a collection of aging apartment complexes and strip malls connected by car-dependent roads. No real downtown, limited walkability. Transit? Forget it. You're stuck in traffic getting to a job that probably doesn't pay enough to cover your rent. It's the perfect storm. High crime, high costs, low wages, zero charm. Would you live in Lauderhill for cheaper rent than Miami Beach? Because that's basically the trade-off. Number 13. Panama City. Picture this. You survive Hurricane Michael in 2018. Your neighborhood gets leveled. You wait for recovery. You're still waiting. 8 years later, some houses still aren't repaired. And now squatters and crime have moved into the ruins. Welcome to Panama City, where the crime rate is so high that criminal defense attorneys argue it's likely the highest in Florida when you factor in arrest data properly. That's a direct quote from legal analysts looking at the numbers. Let's talk numbers. 6 violent crimes per 1,000 residents. 39 property crimes per 1,000. Nearly 800 homeless people in a small metro area. That last one, that's huge for a city this size. You've got nearly 800 people without shelter in a place that gets hammered by hurricanes every few years. And here's the kicker. Panama City is a tourist town. Spring breakers, military families, retirees, they all come through. So you'd think the local economy would be solid, right? Wrong. Most jobs are seasonal, low-wage service work. You're serving drinks to tourists who spend more on a weekend than you make in 2 weeks. Oh, and did I mention another hurricane could literally destroy everything again next year? Because it could. Sleep tight. Number 12. Jacksonville. Jacksonville is the largest city by land area in the continental United States. Congratulations! You win the award for most sprawl. What does that get you? Long commutes, terrible transit, and crime that's basically impossible to police because the city is too big. Genius planning. Over 6,000 violent crimes happen here every year. Not total crimes, violent crimes. Assaults, robberies, worse. The north side and west side neighborhoods, rough, really rough. Here's the thing about Jacksonville. It's cheap compared to Miami and Tampa, but you get what you pay for. The cost of living index isn't bad until you realize the trade-off is living in a car-dependent sprawl factory where driving 40 minutes for groceries is normal. Oh, and traffic? Ranked 23rd worst in America, in a city that's entirely built for cars. How do you mess that up? Why would you consolidate a city and county into one mega region if you're not going to fund the infrastructure to make it work? It's like buying a mansion you can't afford to heat. Congratulations, you're cold in a big house. Would you trade affordability for convenience? Because Jacksonville forces you to choose. Number 11, Orlando. Mickey Mouse's backyard is a mess, y'all. Orlando also has more than double the state average violent crime rate. And that's just the official count. Imagine how much unreported crime happens in a transient tourism economy where half the population is temporary workers or visitors. But wait, it gets better! The homeless population in the Orlando Tri-County area jumped 28% in 1 year. 28%! Unsheltered homelessness, people literally sleeping outside, shot up 105%. That's not a typo, 105%. Let me ask you something. How does the theme park capital of the world have 2,883 homeless people and rising? You've got billion-dollar corporations building new rides every year, but families are living in tents under overpasses. Oh, and rent up 40% since 2019. 40%. Think about that. If you were paying $1,000 for a one-bedroom in 2019, you're paying $1,400 now. Same apartment. Nothing changed except the price. And traffic. Orlando ranks 12th worst in the entire United States. You're spending 30+ minutes commuting in a city with basically no rail transit. Just endless highways, toll roads, and parking lots. Disney sells you the dream. Orlando sells you the reality check. Number 10. Miami. Miami is the city people think they want to live in until they check the price tag. Cost of living index, higher than most of Europe. You're paying international city prices on American wages. Good luck with that math. Let's break down a typical Miami budget. Median monthly homeownership cost, $4,100. Rent for a decent one-bedroom, $2,500 plus. Groceries, insurance, gas, way above national average. Oh, and remember, Florida has no state income tax, except you're paying it in property taxes, insurance premiums, and tolls. You're just paying it differently. They got you. Now add crime. Almost 7 violent crimes per 1,000 residents. Liberty City, Overtown, parts of Little Haiti, these neighborhoods are rough. And they're right next to Brickell, where condos start at $1 million. The inequality is stark. And homelessness? Miami ranks 19th nationally. That's top 20 in America. You're walking past tent cities on your way to a $30 brunch. Can we talk about traffic for a second? Miami ranks 3rd worst in America. Drivers spend the equivalent of 70 days a year stuck in traffic. That's more than 2 months of your life in a car, barely moving. But sure, the beaches are nice. Number 9. Miami Beach. If Miami is expensive, Miami Beach said hold my champagne. We're going luxury expensive. Median home price, $700,000 to $800,000. For context, the national median is around $400,000. You're paying double to live on a sandbar that's literally sinking. Violent crime rate, 2.7 times the national average, and 4 times the Florida average. 4! In a city that markets itself as a glamorous destination. Robberies, assaults, car break-ins, especially in the nightlife zones. Ocean Drive looks fun until your Uber gets broken into. And let's talk climate. Miami Beach floods during high tide. Not during hurricanes, during normal high tides. It's called sunny day flooding, which is the most Florida thing I've ever heard. Yeah, it's not raining, but your street is underwater. Picture this. You pay $4,000 per month for a tiny apartment. It floods twice a month. Your car gets broken into. Traffic is a nightmare. And in 30 years, half the island will be underwater. Still worth it for the Instagram post? Number 8. Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach, where spring break never ended. And that's not a good thing. Violent crime rate, nearly 4 times the Florida average. We're talking assaults, robberies, thefts, lots of thefts. Tourists leave their rental cars unlocked for 5 minutes, and boom, laptop's gone. Here's the thing about Daytona. It's a tourism economy that doesn't pay. Most jobs are seasonal, low-wage, service industry work. You're cleaning hotel rooms and pouring drinks for bikers and college kids who spend more on a weekend than you make in a month. And when the tourists leave, you're stuck in a city with high crime and basically no economic cushion. Poverty rates are high, job prospects are thin, and social services are stretched. Oh, and homelessness spikes during events like Bike Week and Spring Break. Why? Because the city essentially becomes a magnet for transient populations, and services can't keep up. Can we acknowledge how weird it is to market your city as a party destination while residents are struggling with crime and poverty? It's like putting a smile on a dumpster fire. Be honest, would you live in Daytona year-round to save money compared to Miami? Because that's the pitch, and it's not great. Number 7. Cocoa. Cocoa is right next to the Space Coast. You know, rockets, aerospace, high-tech jobs. You'd think some of that would trickle down, right? Wrong. The violent crime rate is 2.8 times the national average, and more than 4 times the Florida average. Property crime? Also high. Your odds of being a victim are disturbingly high. And here's the cruel irony. NASA and SpaceX are launching rockets a few miles away, while Cocoa residents are dealing with gang violence, drug crime, and theft concentrated along specific corridors. The space industry money? It goes to engineers in gated suburbs, not to Cocoa's street-level economy. Local wages are low. Most people work service jobs that don't benefit from the high-tech boom next door. And city services? Limited. The tax base isn't strong enough to fund robust policing or infrastructure upgrades. Imagine living in the shadow of literal rocket launches, peak human achievement, while your neighborhood is statistically one of the most dangerous in Florida. That's Cocoa. Would you take a cheap house in Cocoa for access to Space Coast amenities? Comment, launch, or nope. Number 6. Lake Worth Beach. Lake Worth Beach is what happens when you're next door to Palm Beach wealth, but locked out of it completely. Violent crime is more than twice the state average. We're talking aggravated assaults, robberies, the works. Crime is concentrated north of downtown, where aging housing stock and limited investment create pockets of serious distress. And housing costs? As Palm Beach County real estate has exploded, low-income families in Lake Worth Beach are getting crushed. Older rentals are bought up, flipped, or torn down for new development. Rents are climbing, but wages aren't. The result? A community squeezed between escalating costs and stagnant earnings, with crime filling the gap. Code enforcement struggles. Public safety is stretched thin. Services lag behind need. Some neighborhoods are seeing revitalization, coffee shops, art galleries, the usual gentrification checklist. But other areas remain deeply underserved and unsafe. Here's the thing. Lake Worth Beach has potential. It's got location, it's got bones. But right now, the crime and economic stress make it one of the tougher places to live in South Florida. You're this close to some of the wealthiest zip codes in America, and you can't afford groceries. That's Lake Worth Beach. Number 5. Belle Glade. There's a town in the Glades where the poverty rate is over 30%. The economy runs on seasonal farm labor, and it's been called one of the most distressed small cities in Florida. That town is Belle Glade. Let's be clear. This is an agricultural economy. Sugarcane, vegetables, migrant labor. When the season's good, people work. When it's not, they don't. There's no backup plan, no diversified industry, no tech sector or tourism to cushion the blow. Poverty rate, well over 30% of residents. Unemployment, chronically above state averages. Violent crime, elevated for a city this small, consistently ranking among Florida's more dangerous towns. And social services, thin. The tax base is limited, so funding for schools, infrastructure, health services, all of it is constrained. Residents have high need and low resources. It's a trap. Okay, rant time. Why is one of the wealthiest agricultural regions in America, land that produces millions of dollars in crops, home to some of the poorest communities? Where's that money going? Not to Belle Glade, that's for sure. Would you live in Belle Glade for cheap housing? Because the trade-off is pretty much everything else. Number 4. Riviera Beach. Riviera Beach has prime Palm Beach County waterfront, gorgeous views, marina access, proximity to wealth, and a murder rate that's 7 times the national average. Let me repeat that, 7 times. Violent crime overall? Over 60 incidents per 1,000 residents in some analyses. That's not a neighborhood problem, that's a citywide crisis. Shootings, robberies, assaults, concentrated around public housing and major corridors, make parts of Riviera Beach genuinely dangerous. And here's the kicker. This is expensive real estate. Waterfront property in Palm Beach County isn't cheap, but the crime and poverty create this dystopian contrast where mansions and marinas exist blocks away from deeply distressed neighborhoods. Housing costs are high relative to what locals earn. Many households are cost-burdened, spending 30%, 40%, 50% of income on rent or mortgages. And crime makes it worse, because who wants to invest in a neighborhood where your car might get stolen? Governance has struggled. Policing has had to devote massive resources just to maintain basic safety, which drains funds from other services. It's a vicious cycle. Picture this. You buy a condo near the water. Great investment, right? Except your street has a crime rate that makes the news. Now what? Number 3. Opa-locka. Opa-locka is a small city in northern Miami-Dade with some of the most extreme crime rates in Florida. 8+ violent crimes per 1,000 residents. 51 property crimes per 1,000. Combined, that's nearly 60 crimes per 1,000 people. Think about that ratio. In a city of 16,000, that's almost 1,000 reported crimes a year. 1,000. And this is right next to major job centers and highways. You're not isolated in the Everglades. You're in the metro, and it's still this bad. Let's talk about the physical city. Aging housing stock, under-maintained infrastructure, streets that feel neglected. Code enforcement is overwhelmed. Blight is visible. Services are stretched beyond capacity because the tax base is weak and the need is enormous. Poverty and unemployment are both elevated compared to the county average, though not as extreme as Florida City. But the crime is what puts Opa-locka so high on this list. It's relentless. Here's the tragedy. Opa-locka is close to everything. Airport, expressways, downtown Miami. Geographically, it should work. But economically and socially, it's trapped in a cycle of disinvestment and disorder. Be honest. Would you drive through Opa-locka at night? Because locals don't, if they can avoid it. Number 2. Lake City. Lake City sits on I-75 in North Florida. It's a small town. Quiet, right? Wrong. Violent crime rate is 4 times the Florida average, in a town most people have never heard of. Researchers blame drug trafficking. I-75 is a major corridor for narcotics moving between Florida and the rest of the Southeast. Lake City is a waypoint. Motels on US 90 have become hubs for dealing and crime, and the violence follows. Lake City has the amount of crime you'd expect in a big city with gang problems. not a small, rural I-75 stopover. And economically, Lake City isn't thriving. Cost of living is low, sure, but so are wages and job prospects. There's no major industry, no big employer keeping the economy stable. People who can leave, do. Can we talk about how a town this small ends up with crime rates this high? It's the perfect storm. Drug corridors, plus limited law enforcement resources, plus economic stagnation, and nobody's fixing it. Would you stop for gas in Lake City? Because even that feels risky based on these numbers. Number 1. Florida City. The absolute worst city in Florida, by almost every measure. Florida City isn't just bad, it's an outlier. Let's start with crime. 9+ violent crimes per 1,000 residents. Over 56 property crimes per 1,000. Chance of being a violent crime victim, 1 in 38 per year. 1 in 38! Those are apocalypse movie odds. That's not a city, that's a crime simulator. Now add poverty. Over 50%. 50% of residents live in poverty, half the city. And unemployment? Almost 25%. 1 in 4 adults doesn't have a job. Not between jobs, doesn't have a job. For context, the US unemployment rate hovers around 4%. Florida's is similar. Florida City, nearly 25%. That's Great Depression-level joblessness. And here's the cruelest part. Florida City is the gateway to the Keys. Tourists drive through on their way to paradise. They see the signs, maybe stop for gas, then keep going to Key Largo, Isla Mirada. Florida City gets the traffic, the crime, the transient population, and none of the tourism money. Zero. Housing is cheap, technically, but when half the population is in poverty and a quarter is unemployed, cheap doesn't matter. Nobody can afford anything. Infrastructure? Limited. Services? Stretched impossibly thin. Cultural amenities? Basically none. You want a job? You drive to Homestead or Miami. You want safety? You leave entirely. And climate risk? Florida City is at the southern tip of the peninsula. Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Andrew, they all slam through here first. Flood risk is extreme. Insurance is unaffordable, if you can even get it. So let's recap. Highest crime, highest poverty, highest unemployment, lowest opportunity, and maximum disaster risk. That's why Florida City is number 1. It's not even close. All right, there's your list. 15 cities where things are genuinely tough right now. Quick reminder, these are city-level averages. Every single one of these places has good neighborhoods, good people trying to make it work. This isn't about trashing residents. It's about looking at the data. Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives, and remember to stay safe out there, and maybe avoid Florida City.